Gentle start. Welcome everybody to this lunch and learn session on the value of workplace communities. My name is Ruth Smethurst. I'm the workplace change lead for the Government Property Agency, and I'm just a little bit of a community enthusiast. So I'm delighted to host this lunch and learn today, where we've brought you together a panel of subject matter experts in this field from across central government. I know that I'm going to learn loads from them in the next 45 minutes, and I hope that everyone on the call today comes away with some great ideas and inspiration. Before we meet our panel, we'd love to hear a little bit from you guys. So I'm sure that you're here because you have an interest in the community already. You may have had experiences, be they good or bad, of kicking off and developing workplace communities. So let's have a little talk about that. If you scroll to the right-hand side of your screen, under the tab marked Session, if you click onto that, underneath it, a tab will appear marked Mentimeter, or alternatively, you can click on the link that's just been provided very helpfully by my colleague Cyrus. And when you click into that, you will see a question that we would like to put to you. And this question is, what activities have you been a part of at work that have helped you to feel connected to your colleagues? So if you will bear with me one moment, I will share my screen so we can see some of those answers coming in. And while you are considering your answers and grappling with the technology, I'll tell you a little bit about one of my favourites, which is Digital Pictionary. So me, Cyrus, and the workplace experience team in GPA work in a way that's really dispersed across the UK. It's quite hard for us to get together face to face a lot of the time. So we have sort of social engagements that we do online, including we've had a couple of rounds of Digital Pictionary where we use a whiteboard app as our canvas and our mouse or our tracker pad as the pen. It's a great bonding experience because, quite frankly, some of the artwork is hilarious, but it's a great way to get to know each other as well, because you quickly learn, based on the clues that people are giving you, what people are into across the team. So we know who our Star Wars fans are, we know who the Swifties are across our team. It's been brilliant for us. But let's have a look at some of the things that you guys have said. I'm loving Lunch and Learn right at the top there. That's what we're here doing right now. Crochet clubs. Yes, I know that's a huge movement actually in 23 Stevenson Street. So we might get to hear a little bit more about that later on in the session. I love working across teams. Again, I think if you've said that, you are absolutely in the right place, and Hannah will have loads to contribute around that theme at the moment. Yeah, Asian heritage food. Get your teeth in, Ruth. Asian heritage foodie Eve. That sounds delicious. Super. So quite often we talk about our community events and initiatives that we run across GPA as fitting within a couple of different camps. So they include learning as a major theme, which is coming out in the responses that you put to us there. Socializing and well-being as well. So having that opportunity to do face-to-face meetings, absolutely brilliant. I know, as quite an extroverted person myself, there is nothing better for my well-being than kind of getting out of my own head and talking to other people. And it is lovely to see volunteering up there as well, because where we've got a large cohort of civil servants, public servants based within a particular area, it's fantastic when we're able to actually contribute to the life and the activity that's happening within our locality as well. So I absolutely love to see all of that. Thank you very much for sharing. Lovely to see so many diverse activities going on across our audience today. I will flip back to the main screen, but please feel free, if you would like to continue contributing to that Mentimeter, then you most certainly may. So hopefully taking a few moments just to reflect on things that have been useful to us has served as a bit of a reminder that it feels great when we actually successfully bring our communities together. It's wonderful to connect with one another. And the panelists that we have today can help us to explore how we make that into a reality. So let me introduce them to you now without further ado. And I'm going to first come to Nikki and Nishat. Both of you, could you tell us a little bit about your current roles and how they relate to workplace communities?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Nicola Snaith. I'm the Workplace Services Manager at Birmingham 23 Stevenson Street. My role has evolved over the time that I've been here. I was taken on as a community manager, which allowed me to build the community at Stevenson Street. And I know Ruth will probably come back to that later. As the time has progressed, we've established the community within the GPA building. We've got a multi-tenanted location with over 20 departments. So my role has been bringing those together to do common purpose, build ways of working, but really join people up to do the things that they love and connect. And Nishat joined our team just over a year ago and has really supported in developing and progressing that. So I'll hand over to her.
Hi everyone, my name is Nishat Anjum. I'm the Assistant Workplace Services Manager here at Birmingham 23 Stevenson Street. So we've been maintaining this community here that Nikki started up, and it's just about joining up all the client departments that we've got here and creating that community culture, and making it a great place to work for all the building users.
Brilliant. Thank you both for joining. Alice, I'd like to come to you next, if I may. Can you tell us a little bit about your role in building communities?
Thanks, Ruth. So I'm a regional delivery lead in HMRC, and I'm based in the Yorkshire region. So I'm currently in our regional centre in Leeds. I am relatively new to HMRC, so I joined in May last year, and I previously worked at the Department for Transport in a similar sort of community-based role. In terms of what my role involves, so I'm a regional delivery lead, and I primarily my role is primarily around the delivery of our regional service offer. And what the regional service offer is all about creating an equitable employee experience for all of our staff in HMRC, so no matter their role, grade or location. And one of the things we're looking to do under that regional service offer is how we can change our regional centres into government hubs.
Fabulous. Great again to have you on board. And last but by no means least, Hannah, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about how community plays a part in your role?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Ruth. So hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Horne, and I'm the Head of Policy Comms and Evaluation for the Places for Growth team in the Cabinet Office. For those of you who aren't familiar with the programme, our aim is to strategically reshape the civil service so that policy and decision-making is more regionally representative. And how we do that primarily to date has been role relocations from London, but a key part of this is also making thriving civil service communities across the country. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but this is really about making those cross-government connections in place, and that's primarily what we do. So those of you who know the thematic campuses like Darlington, Sheffield and Leeds, PFG have a bit of a role in kind of supporting those and trying to emulate that model elsewhere.
Brilliant. And as a Yorkshire lass, I've got to say it's wonderful to see Yorkshire really well represented. Nothing, not to detract from all the brilliant work that's happening here in the Midlands where I sit today. And thank you all for those introductions. Really helpful to get to know you a little bit better. Now, I'm a huge fan of any kind of process that works in 3 steps. 3 is about as many ideas as I can hold in my head at once and have any hope of things sticking. So if you are anything like me, it might be beneficial to approach today as a bit of a 3-step masterclass on communities. And we're going to look at the themes of establishing, building and maintaining workplace communities. So I'd like to come to you first, Hannah, if I may, on that theme of establishing communities. Now, in my experience, getting communities off the ground isn't just a case of how we do it, but also why we are building our communities. What are your recommendations when it comes to making the case for communities?
Great question. Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I think the evidence is quite clear that a sense of community can greatly improve your workplace experience. So the Leesman Plus survey that I know GPA do in buildings like 23 Stevenson Street show that correlation. And what we've seen is that departments can either act in isolation to establish a community somewhere, or they can, more and more what we're seeing is these cross-government communities starting to emerge. And these might be around a specific profession. So you can see policy communities emerging in the Northwest, and the policy campus, obviously, in Sheffield. Sometimes it's around identifying the need to join up for policy and shared delivery aims. So the economic campus is a really good example of that in Darlington. Or we might see that a civil service community is responding to the strengths of a place. So there's a really strong digital theme starting to emerge in Manchester, which reflects the labour market strengths of that particular city and area. So I think just spending a bit of time starting to, at the start of the process, to really think about, you know, what is this community and what is it drawing from, and not starting from scratch, I think is a good place to start. Early on, what we know is that senior support is really crucial. So locking down an SES who might support your aims and who is local to that area. And this is because senior leaders can leverage the local system. They can have those strategic conversations, and they can also just dedicate a bit of resource to establishing a community. And I think, well, I'm sure we'll hear from others that having some people who actually are driving this work on the ground, sending the emails, bringing the people together, that can really help. So senior support and a bit of dedicated resource really does go a long way. And I think what we need to think about is the why. So don't just run into starting to establish a community. Really think about the potential benefits and what you're trying to achieve. And from a Places for Growth perspective, we have seen, I suppose, on the theme of threes, the kind of key benefits would be around collaboration, building a talent pipeline, and engagement with local stakeholders. So I'll just go into those three in a bit more detail. So on collaboration, what we've seen in the Sheffield Policy Campus is a recognition that there is a large concentration of policy professionals in that area. And DFE and DWP in particular have come together and acknowledged that and identified some shared themes and some shared workforce development opportunities. So they're now bringing together their strategy teams on a regular basis, and they're having shared development and tackling issues kind of head on together, because they've acknowledged that they are all policy professionals and they're all in this location in the north of England. So that opportunity to collaborate has only come about because they have decided to establish a community together. The next one really is about building your talent pipeline. And again, coming together as a cross-government civil service community can really strengthen the engagement you can do in the local area. So one department can go and knock on the door of a university and say, you know, can we come and talk to you about how great it is to be a civil servant? How much more powerful is that when you get 5 or 6 departments going together saying, we are the civil service and we want to talk to you about a career, an end-to-end career about that you can have in this place, and, you know, be it Birmingham, Sheffield, Manchester, Glasgow. It's a much more compelling story when we go out with one voice. And so again, that cross-government community can really help to build that talent pipeline. And we see that in Darlington as well, where, you know, we're inviting people into the civil service, not to a single department, but we're saying, if you join the civil service in Darlington, there are 9 different departments that you can work for. And so there is this pipeline for people coming through the door, which again, I think only comes around where we acknowledge that we are this community. And then finally, there is definitely a piece on kind of engagement with local stakeholders. So again, in Darlington, because we have that theme of an economic campus and bringing the right parts of government together to tackle economic issues specifically, they have been able to go out to local stakeholders, invite the third sector, private sector, industry into the room and say, how can we start to look at investment in the Northeast collectively? How can we have a strategy? What are the type of things that we need to be thinking about as a cross-section, because we're looking for the same kind of shared outcomes? And I think that sense of community, again, has driven that work, because these departments are collaborating in this place. They're sitting shoulder to shoulder in the economic campus. And so they're able to go out again with that single voice. So I think those three things, you know, building the pipeline, collaborating, having partnerships to engage with local stakeholders, that is a really good set of benefits to set out to anyone as to why it's really helpful to have this cross-government community in place. And if I can just do a quick plug, in PFG, we do have a network of heads of place that are director level appointments, and they spend a bit of their time establishing communities and supporting the establishment of communities across the country. So we will send out the contact details of our heads of place after this conference to all civil servants who are on the call. And if you are looking to get involved in a community, your head of place is a really great place to start. And before I take over the entire call, I will stop there. But yeah, great question, Ruth, and really happy to answer some more later on.
Thank you, Hannah. Really fantastic and comprehensive answer there as well. It's lovely to hear when community, I think, often can be considered something that's a bit ethereal and a little bit soft and fluffy. There's a really strong core business case for establishing those communities. So thank you for sharing that. Next up, we're going to look at building on an active community. And Alice, I would love to pick your brain around this, if I may. Can you tell us a bit about how you define communities in HMRC and how you're going about opening that out to other government departments that share those HMRC spaces?
Of course. Thanks, Ruth. So I'm just going to provide a little bit of context, if that's okay, just because I'm conscious we probably have some people that aren't familiar necessarily with HMRC on the call. So HMRC has always been a national civil service department. There was a programme that was launched in 2014 that looked to close a lot of the smaller HMRC local offices to build these big regional centres. And these regional centres are in city centres. They're modern, they're clean, they're inclusive, and in HMRC, we have 12 of them. We are due to still open 2 more, one in Newcastle and one in Portsmouth. So we have a total of 14 regional centres. COVID then happened following that programme, and that changed a lot of things, including the brilliant addition of hybrid working. So we had some space that could be occupied by other government departments. And what this created was a really fantastic opportunity to not just have HMRC in regional centres, but to have HMRC plus lots of other government departments in order to be able to create these government hub communities. So just for reference, I'm in Leeds, and in my regional centre we have 17 government departments, and they vary in size, but we have about 8,500 people in the building, so really big space. As I mentioned at the start of my introduction, so HMRC, we have a regional service offer, and this is very much our definition of communities. That regional service offer has 5 pillars of activity, which supports our colleagues in all of our locations. A lot of these pillars complete activity, which is often completed by other government departments. So what government hubs do is create that fantastic opportunity to connect and collaborate. Like Hannah mentioned, sort of where you're having one department do something, where you're having 17 departments do something one time. There is such a power in numbers of being able to do something once collectively, really powerful. So whether or not that's outreach activity at a university or whether or not it's a Macmillan coffee morning, for example. So in terms of how we've started to go about that in Leeds, so we held a workshop in April, and what we had there was representatives of all government departments based in the building to ask how we should best collaborate. And what I'm really conscious about whilst talking about this, I don't want to give all the barriers and the negatives, but I will highlight some of the challenges we've had along the way, because I think it's really important that this stuff isn't always easy. When we say around building a community, you think, oh, we've sent an email to everyone comes on board. But actually, we know there's lots of different challenges within that that we face whilst trying to do this. So when we held this workshop, one of the first challenges was around our shared technology. So across the civil service, we don't all operate on the same platform. So in HMRC, we're on Teams, but in other departments, they might not be. So that was the first challenge, was having these comms channels that we could efficiently use in order to be able to get these messages down. What we resorted to was just emails. And if anybody else's inbox is like mine, it can be quite a challenge sometimes to get through. And there is stuff that can be missed in there. So that's definitely one of the challenges, of having sort of a cross-civil service communication channel where we can communicate effectively. And I know GPA has done work in this space. I'm sure we'll hear from Nikki later about what that looks like. But it's definitely something that we're still feeling within HMRC regional centres. It's something that's still ongoing in terms of work. One of the other challenges when coming to the workshop was around trying to find the best contact. In a building of 8,500 people, trying to find the best person who's involved in sort of community and that sort of activity can be really difficult to do. But those challenges aside, we held the workshop and it was really successful. So what we had is lots of different ideas of how we could connect and collaborate in terms of coming together to form this government hub community. And we then moved into a prioritisation exercise to understand which ideas worked for the majority. One of the other, I keep saying challenges, but I don't know if it's a challenge, maybe a barrier. No, one of the other areas that we had to consider was the varying degree of departments that we have within this building. So HMRC, there is 4,000 people in this building, and we primarily are an operational profession based department. When you compare that to Department for Transport, they have around 350 people in the building, and they're primarily sort of policy based professionals. So what you're trying to get from those two people might not always be the same when it comes to sort of operational outputs, but usually our people strategic priorities are aligned. So that makes it definitely a lot easier. What we're currently doing at the moment is doing a data collection exercise, and what we want to understand is the actual numbers of staff networks and professions within those departments. What we can then do is come together and form a really robust plan into what we're then going to take forward in that space when we come to deliver some of that activity. And just the final thing that I wanted to mention is another piece of work that's happening at the minute, and it's a really, really fantastic pilot, and I'm really excited about it because, like I said at the start, I moved from Department for Transport to HMRC. I still live in York, I still work in Leeds, and when I changed roles in the civil service, I just moved one floor down in the same building. My commute was the exact same, and so it was a really great opportunity that I could progress my career while staying in Leeds, which is fabulous. So in this cross-government job shadowing scheme, we have 60 job shadowing opportunities, and that's across 8 different departments. So we're really, really looking forward to see what the appetite from colleagues is on this, because we want to give colleagues the opportunity to progress their career while staying in the same place. And we're really hoping this pilot is going to support with providing those opportunities. Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks, Alice. That absolutely warms my northern heart, that final message. And as a personal reflection as well, GPA are one of those departments that you mentioned, sharing the space with HMRC in Leeds. So I've experienced that firsthand, the scope of some of those events. As you say, even like the Macmillan coffee mornings and things, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to get involved in that. So thank you for sharing your views on how that's developing. And Nikki and Nishat, I'd like to get some insight from you guys about maintaining a community, because of course you mentioned before you've been maintaining a community group that includes some 20 odd departments, and you've done this since 2021. How have you seen the community at 23 Stevenson Street in Birmingham grow and change during that time?
Thanks, Ruth, and great question as well. I'd say in a summary, is seen it grown gradually and in different directions. And it's as Alice brought in, that bringing different departments together, there isn't sort of a set path that should follow. So as you join people up, we found naturally that common interests and shared interests and new ideas always come to the table. But as you were explaining then around the group and building a group and how you maintain that group dynamics, what we found is initially Ruth's team, the workplace experience team, did a great job in setting up the community as the departments joined Stevenson Street back in 2021 through the mobilisation and up to opening. And it was in the COVID time, so it was all very digital initially. Obviously we opened, but then we went into plan B, so we were all back at home. But we got our first event planned just as that was happening, which was a Christmas jumper event. So it really highlighted that actually, yes, face-to-face and interaction is really, really important, but actually the community feel and the vibe can take different directions. And at that point, the digital method was really, really important. So we have the customer service portal, which is a tool that all departments can log into. So although you've got your own intranets and your own options, you can all log into a portal to get building information. But you also have a community side of that where information can be shared. So events and things that are coming are all available for people to see in like a one-stop shop, as we call it. But Christmas Jumper Day is the one that I'm referring to, and that event was from home. So it was take a selfie and send it in, and then we just had a chain of messages. But that really brought people together. Just a bit of fun, you know, someone with their antlers on, some me in front of the Christmas tree. But those things that actually sort of started to see people as people rather than department to department. So started to get to people to know each other. And as the groups had originally been set up with one person from each department to help share messages. So as Hannah was saying, sharing emails and sharing that communication is really important. But again, not all departments work the same way. So having one contact for a department may be the right way, but for another department, and there's one that always comes to mind when I say this, they have 4 different people, and we've got every layer of management within that chain. So when we're sharing messages or comms or groups or events or meetings, depending on the availability of somebody being able to retrieve that information and cascade it to their teams, you've got all options covered. So we've kept it really flexible to be able to help departments engage in the way that's needed. But then the benefit that has is that when then we have a regular meeting, we have events that have grown and taken different direction. And when I say taken different direction, because as people have been able to bring their ideas to the table, and it's taken different direction, it's given that space that people can then bring those ideas to life themselves. So initially, sort of going back to the start, they were directed and led very much by workplace services. But as times evolve, we now have departments that are happy to put their idea into, their idea in the hat, but then bring it to life themselves with the support of the community group. So other departments that then join that. And our Special Olympics event on Saturday is a great example of that, where we had 20 people from different departments join on the Saturday to support an Olympics event for a local community. But that was by joining people up and people, getting to know each other. And as Hannah says, sitting side by side with departments, but they become friends. They become people that you can call on if you need something. Over time, we've also linked up with the Civil Service Sports Council, which have brought some great ideas. So the contact that supports our area covers different areas across the country. So we also share our ideas, but also experiences, and equally Michelle brings hers. And from that's given us different ideas, but also very handily given us some funding. So some of the examples of the things that we've been able to bring to life are yoga sessions, from people sharing their passions and what they do in their spare time. We have a quiz master in Ofsted, but he runs a great event every other month. We've had CPR training, so we've done some midi-cushion. We've had a birthday event, so the birthday was 2 last year. It's 3 this year, so watch your space if you're on the call and you cover Stevenson Street. But a network event really, so help people and support people to come together and have a little bit of fun and enjoy the events together. Macmillan obviously is around the corner, so we will be doing our bake sale again. We've had Christmas Jumper Day, we've had separate bake sales. As Ruth says, we've got our crochet club, we've got walking and running groups, but this has all come from people engaging and sharing what their passions are, what their interests are, but creating that space for them to be able to bring them to life with our support and guidance. And as Nishat introduced herself at the beginning, she came on board and came with some really great new innovative ideas. And I'd like her to share some of her experiences and examples of what she's been able to do over the last 12 months.
Go for it, Nishat.
Yes, thanks, Nikki. Just working off the back of the amazing work that Nikki did and the workplace experience did in getting that community group established, it was really important to bring it all together. We have as we've already said, 20 odd departments, and we've created this group of individuals who are all really passionate about creating a great workplace. So now that that's established, it was important to kind of grow on that. We've been linking up with other government hubs, just sharing ideas and best practice about what's worked here and what hasn't worked here. And it's not just to say it's it's just, GPA hubs. We're also working with Cabinet Office departments, and they've joined up with their local offices just to try and create a wider Birmingham community. And so it just creates more opportunities for people locally to get involved, and it's not necessarily just across government. We've also linked up with local charities and organisations such as Let's Feed Brum, which is a charity that supports the homeless community in Birmingham. And we're always working with them and fundraising through all of our events to support them. And it creates volunteering opportunities as well for the people who work here, not just during work, but outside of work. But yeah, I'm very passionate about making it a diverse and inclusive environment for everyone, and making sure that it represents everyone and everyone's views, and that we're all seen. As part of that, when I joined around that time, it was actually Ramadan, which is the month in the Islamic calendar where Muslims observe fasting for a month. And so as part of that, I wanted to bring a little community together to see if we had common interests, because I hadn't met many other people who were observing the same as I was. So we hosted a community iftar in our lower ground area, which was a big networking event. We had fundraising, and a lot of people came forward that we didn't realize were interested. And off the back of that, we're always constantly evolving and constantly learning and changing what we do based off of the ideas that we get. So because we had this community iftar and we created that space for people to come forward, we've now had a lot of interest in making a multi-faith group, which I'm really excited about. And we can, and as you create these opportunities, people come forward. So it's just about trying new things and seeing what works, and not everything will work. But as we always say, if one person comes, then it's a success, because they're, you made that difference. Exactly. Yeah. We've got so many people in the building. There's always going to be someone with a common interest, and it's just about making, these really small things have such a massive impact. And it's a really small idea that it starts off as, but it creates something so meaningful, and it will be a really enriching experience. So yeah, that's how we're looking to grow further. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Nishat. It's amazing to hear those live examples and that kind of finished product. It's never finished, we know this, but the kind of end result of some of the activities you can do as a community. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Nishat, but I think this brings us quite nicely full circle to some of the themes that Hannah picked up. What's been the impact of the 23 Stevenson Street community on you personally? I know you're quite, close, relatively new to the workforce, new to the civil service. What's it meant for you being involved?
Thank you. That's really good question, actually. For me personally, yeah, as I've said, I'm so passionate about making it a place where I feel seen, where my views are respected, and the building helps that anyway. And I think for me, it's just, I feel like I have a space, a safe space to talk about what I believe in, and I want to create that space for everyone, because it's just been, I just feel so much more comfortable talking about, when you've got someone with common interests, it's just much easier. And when you go through the same struggles, it feels like it makes it a little bit easier to get through the day. So yeah, for me personally, I just seeing the impact that it's had on me, I just want to make sure that it's, everyone else going through the same kind of thing has that same opportunity.
Thanks so much for sharing that. It really kind of lifts the theory that we're talking about here off the page, hearing about what a difference it's made to you. We have around about 10 minutes left of our session. I hope that everyone's feeling really, really inspired by that. And I can already see we've got some really great Q&A coming in for our panel. Just before we get to that, I would love to come back to each of you just once more for a top tip around your sort of thematic areas. So starting with you, Hannah, if you could share one top tip or hack around establishing a community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it comes back to starting with why, really thinking about what we're trying to achieve by coming together and how you then articulate that. And quite often the best way to do that is to just ask the people who you're trying to engage with, what do you need, what do you want, what would feel good, what would good look like, and then coming up with a really succinct set of kind of shared outcomes. What are we trying to achieve together? And if I can add an extra tip, sorry, I'm overstepping my brief, but I think not trying to go for too many things. Really focus on 2 or 3 shared outcomes that you're trying to get to, because we can all spread ourselves too thin. We all have busy day jobs. So what are the 3 most important things we're trying to achieve? And squeeze a quick win in there, so that you're taking the pressure off yourself a little bit as well.
Brilliant advice. Thank you. Alice, could we get a top tip from you on building communities?
So I think patience is incredibly important in this space. So we know that communities aren't formed overnight, and it's not after just one event or maybe 2 events, and it can be really, really disheartening if people have put lots of time and energy and effort into organising something and the take up just isn't there, or there's low attendance. So patience in this journey, I think, is really, really important, because you slowly chip away at these things, and as long as you're heading in that right direction and doing the things that Hannah just mentioned there in terms of getting people on board and setting your priorities to being manageable and achievable, then I think that's really important. So yeah, my one's definitely patience in this space.
Thank you. Yeah, Rome certainly was not built in a day. Nikki and Nishat, in a few words, could you share a top tip about maintaining a successful community?
We would say that creating that space for people to bring their ideas to the table and giving them the confidence to bring them to life is really, really powerful, which we've created and we sustain. But as you say, it's keeping that alive and continuing the focus, like as Alice said, even if something doesn't have the uptake that you need or doesn't have the response, is keeping going, but encouraging people to continue that engagement, because no idea is a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly. I think, as you said, Alice, it's really easy to get disheartened when you put all this planning into this event and you only get a couple of people who show up. But I think if we take each of those as a learning opportunity, it really helps. And even if you do just get one person who shows up, that's one person who's engaged, and you've made a difference to that one person's day. We're always pushing our clients to suggest absolutely anything, and we'll run with it, and we'll see what we can make with it. So yeah, no idea is a bad idea.
Thank you. Got amazing pearls of wisdom there. You make it sound so simple. I'm sure we'll all be off to put those things into practice later this afternoon. We'll have thriving communities. We've got loads of questions have started to roll in on our Q&A. So I'm going to throw these out to the group. And if there's something that really speaks to you, please feel free to jump in. Oh, this question is so good. It's been asked twice. So I definitely have to pick on that one. In your opinion, can a community sustain itself without a leader or an organizer being appointed? Great question.
I'm happy to jump in for a first stab at that one. So what we've seen from research by the Institute for Government is that senior and visible leadership is really important, especially in terms of the success factors for our thematic campus approach. So Darlington being a good example, but we're also seeing similar in Sheffield. It is that senior leadership that can really add leverage to establishing a community, partly because it illustrates to people that there's a kind of confidence and commitment to that sense of community. I think when people see senior leaders signing up to something and giving it their backing, then quite often they kind of follow suit as well. But also just in terms of having those visible senior leaders in communities, it's about reach and being able to unblock problems as well. So quite often the smallest issues can scupper the plans to make a community, and quite often it takes a phone call and an email here and there, and that issue can be resolved. So I don't think anything is impossible, but I think it definitely greases the wheels to have a leader and an organizer supporting community development.
Fabulous. Yeah, and again, that really tallies with my own sort of reflections as well. If you have senior leaders who are willing to take their own time to nurture and develop these communities, that's really permissive. It gives you the opportunity to fit and the empowerment to do so yourself as well, doesn't it? Nikki, Nishat, Alice, any further thoughts around that leading of a community? And it's fine to say no. We have tons of other questions that I can come to. I've got one specifically aimed at you, actually, Nikki. So we'll come to that one next. And this is a bit of a question around sort of the workings of GPA, I suppose. So does the workplace services team just focus on community activity, or does it also deliver wider activity around maintaining the workplace?
So in terms of the purpose of the community, obviously is bringing people together and creating that common purpose and that that shared experience. But in terms of the workplace as a whole and creating great places to work, the workplace itself is equally as important. So where that person's asked me, looking after physical environment as well. So in terms of physical environment, if that was building related issues that may have come from the feedback, then we do have a hub user group meeting separate where building issues are discussed with a different team of people, because it's normally more relevant for that group to look after for their department. But in terms of physical environment, in terms of from a wellbeing point of view and understanding how to use the different spaces, because we'll plug here now, but the Stevenson Street has a great variety of locations and workspaces to allow people to be as productive as they can be on their day. So you've got your collaboration space, your breakout space, your do not disturb rooms, your workstations. There's many more examples. Through the community group, then yes, we would look at fair use policies and ways of working and supporting people to use the space in the right way to get the most out of their experience. I hope that answers the question, but I did see one of the questions in the chat that somebody wanted to pick up after. So if you wanted to know more detail, then please reach out.
Thanks, Nikki. No, I think that gives a really good overview. I have one more question, which I think I have time to ask, which is from my colleague, Guy Chamberlain. Hello, Guy. Nice to have you here. Alice, I think you will have a really good insight to share on this one. So Guy's noticed that we often find departments want to continue with their own departmental communities, even where they've come into sort of shared spaces, rather than working towards one wider inclusive community. Is this something that you've experienced, and how are you beginning to sort of unpack and address that?
Yeah, it's really, so I saw this question in there and it made me smile, because it's definitely something that we feel, and the biggest driver behind that is the maturity of those organisations within that space. So, and I'm so sorry, I'll keep using the example of HMRC and DFT because it's something that I'm really comfortable and familiar with. DFT was brand new to this building and brand new to Leeds as a location. So in terms of them wanting to build their own community, that was really important to them, because they needed to find their feet before they then start dipping their toes in the bigger pond, so to speak. Whereas something like HMRC, there's a completely different level of maturity because they've always been here. So in terms of experiencing it, yes, it's something that we still experience now, because there's still a variety of appetite when it comes to this work, but it all falls down to the maturity of the organisations and their proactiveness and their appetite in order to be able to engage in it. And I think it's really important when you are within this work that you can have those conversations, be open and honest with those departments to understand what the appetite is before, proceeding all the way down the line whilst they're still in the space of trying to establish their own community in their own space.
Thank you. Great insight. We have just a couple of minutes. Any thoughts from you ladies in GPA or yourself, Hannah, around making those community experiences inclusive of all different departments?
I think it's really important that now that we're moving into more of a model where lots of departments are commonly co-located, we acknowledge that people are going to have these different identities. And so you have the identity of your department, you have the identity of your professional function, you might have the identity of being, in a specific building, and also of being from that place. So, here I am in Sheffield Sheffield. I'm part of the policy profession, but I'm also part of the Cabinet Office. I engage in the Sheffield Policy Campus as well, and I feel part of the Yorkshire and the Humber region. And so I am engaging in different communities all of the time, and I feel part of all those different communities. But two things can be true. I do not feel excluded from one because I'm in another. And so I think we need to start to broaden our kind of understanding of how and when and where we engage with these different communities, because we do all have these different identities, especially as civil servants. I know there might be wider public sector workers on the call as well, but speaking from that departmental lens. So yeah, it's just about acknowledging all of those different communities that we can engage in and seeing that as a strength, not a weakness.
Thanks, Hannah. That's beautifully put. I quite often like to refer to that process that you just outlined there as unpeeling the layers of the community onion. Like when you start digging into it, we do all belong to a lot of different groups and a lot of different communities. So thank you for sharing that. We are about at the end of our time together now, although I'm sure we could all sit here and explore this all day. I know I could. I hope that you've all come away feeling inspired, and I really hope that you've got some practical ideas of things that you can take back into the day job with you. If you're still not sure what that takeaway is for you, just one or two further suggestions from me. Please make the most of the networking time that's been embedded into smarter working. I know that for some, this is really daunting. The word networking might fill you with dread. If that's you, try and set yourself a secret mission to just talk to one new person across the 2 days of Smarter Working Live and find one thing that you have in common with them. Those simple conversations are the foundation that all of our communities are built on. If you're looking for an established community to share with and learn from, why not join the GPA-hosted Smarter Working Community of Practice? You can find out more about how to join that community by visiting the GPA virtual exhibition space. And last of all, if you are visiting that exhibition space, you can ask a member of the GPA Workplace Experience team for their top tips or access to some of the tools and resources that we use in building communities. If today's given you a bit of motivation, please don't let your interest in communities end here. Thank you once again to our fantastic panel for sharing their know-how, and to all of you for joining the Lunch and Learn, and have an absolutely brilliant Smarter Working Live.